I'm driving. If
you'll be home in a half hour, then we can easily catch up on it later.
Yeah, we're home in half an hour.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. The audio will catch up with me briefly. Ernest, how are your network going?
It's fine. I had to restart, and yeah, I had some Zoom problems, but they're fixed now.
All right. Did you want to start by discussing the document you shared about the, was it evolving community?
Yeah, I did a little presentation here. Let me see if I can get this going.
Sweet.
Always, where is it here?
Everlasting community. Sorry, that was the phrase.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, you're gonna try and keep it to 10 minutes?
Yeah, let me assume I should be faster than that. Yeah.
Sweet.
So principled everlasting community, ensuring continuity in community. So why what got me to this place? Well, I've observed a lot of the controversies with Twitter, Reddit, all these platforms that at first they do all kinds of things to gain users, right? Form an audience, create a community, and then when they have that, then they start with all their shenanigans, with restricting API, with trying to make lots of money, like Reddit. They just want to do an IPO or something, and they just want to make sure that prospective investors know, oh yeah, there's profit coming, there's revenue coming in. But the problem is that those changes are going afoul with the community. The community doesn't like that, but because these people their lives kind of depend on Reddit or other platforms, TikTok, whatever. They actually put their lives into them, and when the platform owners change policies, they have no voice. So how do we fix that? Well, I have a couple of my proposed solutions involve two main things. We have to elevate ethics, and we have to focus on humanity. So let's go back to the mass audience platforms. These are the main tools that people with money use to make money. So what do I mean? Well, they have to collect people, and they do that by offering, ways for people to be famous, to have their own personal platform. Some people, I think, are good for that. I follow some scientists like Sabine Hossenfelder. I think she's great. She's particle scientist, or she's in a lot of science, right?
She's a heterodox physicist.
Yes, and she has opinions. She's kind of doesn't go with all her cohort, so she has her own opinions on that, and sometimes she clashes with people. But I value her content. I don't know if she's an influencer. I don't think she behaves like that, but
she counts as an influencer.
Yeah, right, because she has
or YouTuber, to be precise. Yeah, I mean, her business model is the same as everyone else on YouTube. Her ethics may be different, but her business model is the same.
Yeah, and that's another problem I have, especially specifically with YouTube. Every time I see a YouTube video, and then they have this big banner, like, and sometimes they come with sound effects, like click here, click subscribe, and all that stuff. So every single video has like subscribe and like, come on, So that just cheapens the content. And I, very often I add in the content. This just cheapens your content. I don't care what YouTube says. You don't have to follow that. But anyway, but these people, they depend on YouTube or whatever platform, so they change their business to do that. But the problem is that the platform, now have to like, because the YouTube algorithm, click and like whatever. It's like, no, I'm not gonna behave in a way to make an algorithm be, I'm not gonna subsume my freedom or whatever for an algorithm. Every time they do that, I hate it more. But anyway, people, they have their personal audiences, personal, platforms or whatever, and that's what platforms like YouTube and others use to collect audiences, collect people, so that they can then serve ads to people. And because the main thing is serving ads. Apparently that's the only thing to do, serving ads or charging fees, a lot of fees, or a combination. So that's what these are. That's mass audience platforms. All they want to do is collect people to make money or to manipulate minds. There's these mass media platforms that they cater to politicians, for example, and whatever makes news. So there's this movement in American politicians, especially conservatives, that they say things are woke. And the problem with that is that they first don't define the term, so they can assign anything that they hate to the term woke. And to me, woke is a good term. It's a term like, hey, you know what's going on, and you're aware of the past and what's going on in things that society. But some people just assign anything negative to the term woke, and then they can. It's a very flexible language that allows them to do to say what they want to say without saying it. So and it's terrible. I don't like that. Anyway, these platforms facilitate this kind of messaging and mind manipulation, because you ask people. Sometimes they ask people, "What do you think about this thing?" And their opinions go exactly with the message that these people are spreading. And when you try to scratch below the surface, there's no basis for their knowledge. They are only repeating what they hear, and that is mind manipulation. And that's what these platforms do. So the first part of my or one of the aspects of my proposal is we have to have digital humanity. So we are human beings, right? And but we live in a digital world. So now the platform, the oligarchs, the owners of these platforms, they own the digital because they have all kinds of money to buy computers and networks and all that stuff. Well, we now have the technology to develop our own networks. We can develop software and protocols so that we can have networks that are centered on the individual, where connection is paramount. And using the term pods, like, you have the orcas and dolphins, they swim in pods, like, a bunch of individuals that swim together. In humans have the same thing. Somebody's family might be part of your pod, friends, maybe it's colleagues. And these are connections that no matter what, they will stay. They transcend principle and time. These are the people that are with you all the time together. They bring meaning to your life in a very deep way. So no matter where you go, they stay with you. So so it's important for you to keep those connections. If you move from one place to another place, those connections should not be broken. So this digital humanity is a place where it's a safe place, and and I know that we are all into the AI thing, but in this place, in my opinion, it is important to have AI and bots out, to keep them out. And this is just because, in your head, in your mind, I'm seeing this as an extension of people's minds, and you don't have bots in your, at least not yet, and I hope never, but I mean, you don't have a bot or AI inside of your own head. Your mind is in your brain is human, is biological, and you don't have bots trying to change your thoughts. So in this extended space, I think it's important that we can keep those things out too. Now, when it comes to like ingesting data or content, maybe you want to transfer a document to a digital, then if OCR is, has some AI in there, but that's more like functional. It's not something that is gonna take content and modify it and present it in another way. It's gonna just transfer content. In that case, that's acceptable. But anything that takes content and manipulates it and presents it in another way, I see that as intrusive and it shouldn't be permitted in this network. People will always have access to the internet, to the utilitarian side. So when you need to access those things, when you need to have a mass audience, you can do that. But when you need as a respite from it, when you need to do like mindfulness exercise that people do. You can do that with your pod and the people that your circle in your sphere, and I'll talk about those later. So this is
Ernest,
social
just so you know, this is actually your time. I realize you haven't gotten to the meat of it yet, but maybe you can try to do another 5 minutes and summarize the rest.
Yeah. Okay. So another thing is this digital humanity network has the an ethical blockchain. And blockchain is a database that is append only. That is you can't modify it. I mean, it's a shared database of actions and decisions and pledges that we can use to keep people accountable and responsible. Okay, the next part, based on digital humanity, we have digital community, and this is where people with similar principles can get together into communities and do things and do whatever. They have a purpose. They share a sense of ethics and morals, and they can together they can do get together and do things like share knowledge, share content, whatever. The social software aspect of this is that it benefits communities and individuals, but there's no oligarch behind it. It's just you have a community that is held together by principles, and we're gonna work together and benefit the community. So, and the ethical blockchain part of this is that the same one that is in the humanity, you can have multiple societies. That one society might be scientists, another one might be all kinds of professionals. But no matter what, you share the humanity. So in the same blockchain, it's like you have Ethereum, and then you have these other Solana, other projects. So you can share the core blockchain, but then you can add functionality into your own society. So in certain societies, you can say, hey, we're going to use what you pledge in the blockchain to judge you. Are you authentic? Are you genuine? And because it's a blockchain, you can't. It can be forged. So what you do, it determines how people judge you. So conclusion. Mass audience platforms are tools, and they can be abused by the owners. So people have to know when to rely on those tools. Digital humanity provides safe spaces for principled societies to get together and thrive. in the legal community provides happiness because it puts together ethics and purpose. That's it.
Thank you, Ernest. That was a really great summary of things that you've talked about. I don't actually have many questions. I think you've touched on a lot of the points that we have argued endlessly about and did a really good job of summarizing them. So thank you. Tom, did you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, it's like I agree with everything, but what's going to happen next week? Is and then the second question is, I agree with everything, but I didn't see any citations or case studies where any of the assertions about better humanity are proven, even in a small community.
Well, okay.
But that's me. You know me.
This is a lot of ideals, I guess. And in our journey, we have gone back and forth where, we can do that, but it doesn't match with the realities of markets and economies. And I'm like, well, this has to be a break from that, and that's the difficult part. Yes.
And this is why we have three of us here, right? Because Ernest is the visionary idealist artist. I don't care if it's practical. This is just right. And but he's and you're the, if I may call you, the engineer. It's like, hey, unless we have nuts and bolts and data, this is not actually. I don't know what to do with this, right? I need some clear functional specs with precise definitions. And I'm sort of the guy in the middle. It's like, okay, what's the roadmap? How do we actually turn Ernest's vision into something Tom can compute? At least that's how I see our little triumvirate here.
And Ernest knows what I recommend because we've been through this before. We start with a quantification of the top level objectives so they are more clear.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
Otherwise, you're sounding ideals that we all agree to. They're almost political statements. Vote for me and life will be more humane. Okay, I'll vote for you. but
to his point, though, I'm actually really glad Ernest did this because I feel like this version of this thing is much more there were less stuff he said that I wouldn't buy in. Like don't take away my LLMs. I want to be able to use them. And he did a nice carve out. Okay, for translation, I'll let you do it. Just don't use it to mess with my brain. And so we have. It is important to negotiate even the principles. But anyway, yes. Ready to move on, or did you have anything else more you wanted to?
I'm fine.
Okay. So you did a great job of queuing up what I wanted to discuss, Ernest. If you want to stop sharing, let's see if I can get my. I was not disciplined enough to. I think we got it there. Get my stuff into a notes. I'll just work off of the barely legible font of this Google document, and if you can read that, okay, wherever you are, Tom.
If larger, better. I can read the biggest headlines, and I cannot read this one. Now I can start reading it.
Okay, there we go.
Readable.
Okay, good.
And my iPhone.
And there's not a whole lot there. I just added one paragraph. So, goodness. Okay, Tom, are we blurring your face there? Anyway, I spent my summer vacation in Tahoe last week doing a techno fling with a new technology called Urbit, which I've texted about a little bit. And Urbit, I'm going to make the claim just because I can, and this is what we do here, that Urbit is Web 4. So Web 1 was sort of the anarchy, Wild West, everyone doing whatever they could build by the skin of their teeth. Web 2 was the corporate controlled internet where so Web 1, everyone sort of managed their own data. And there were essentially no apps. Web 2 was, okay, we want to get these beautiful usable apps, but they deal with the devil and they're going to be provided by these monstrous platforms that Ernest did a very beautiful critique of. And then Web 3 is like, no, that's the wrong way to do it. Everything should be on the public blockchain. And that way anyone has the root database, they can fork it, everything's global and transparent, and that's the nirvana that we want. And the Urbit critique, Urbit actually predates Web3. It's been this crazy open source project for over a decade. They've been slowly becoming more usable, more mainstream, not really mainstream at all, more accessible, and more crypto friendly. But they are based around three really powerful ideas, which I think mesh really well with Ernest's vision of HumanNet. I mean, there's not perfect alignment, but it's an interesting place to start. One is that they're deeply human-centered in the sense that they start with, you have a personal key, a private key, and that is literally everything. It's your handle, it's the name you go by in your community, it is the endpoint of all routing. So once you have this key, everyone has everything they need to know about you, and they use that for everything everywhere. I changed my Twitter name to be ponnum-minnus. That's my, I guess I should mention it here. That's my Urbit ID. And they use this for everything. And this makes so many other problems much simpler, is that networking is all based around your private key. And wherever you set your server, wherever it pops up on the network, the Urbit router will find it that way. All data is automatically encrypted and automatically secure. Like, that's the only way to send a message, is by using someone's, you have to know their public key, and then you can send it to them, and encryption routing, everything is handled transparently by the network layer. So that's a really interesting thing. Now, to be fair, you can have other, this is what's called a ship. They have all this weird Martian, Earth, time travel, space travel, mythology around it. That's a whole nother story. But they start with that. And the second thing is that, I guess actually that's probably the more important thing here, is associated with your key is your ship, which is your personal, your
pod.
Which is, yes, it's your pod. And the idea is that all data lives only on your ship, right? And the big deal about it is that all compute comes to you. This is the radical idea, which may not work, but this is the horse that they're betting on, is that we really believe that you need to have your own identity, and you literally own your data, and you don't share your data with anyone. If you want to run an app, you run it on your pod. And to do this, they have this Nock virtual machine, which is a, 6+4 opcode minimalist language with a lot of messy hacks underneath to make it performant. And all the apps are written in this language called Hoon. I think it's the Hoon language, the Avro OS, et cetera. And there's this, my sense is the community measures in the hundreds, because it's a very high barrier to entry. They literally call this Martian computing. And sometimes their programming languages look like they were written by Martians. And anyway, so this was fascinating just because it's a very contrarian take on Web3. They're a real world thing, more or less, building more or less real world applications. So that was on Friday when I learned about them and learned all the stuff. When I dug in, there's this crazy coincidence that the thing that I left Apple to go bring into the world is this thing called Frames, which is basically the goal was to be a better Lisp than Lisp. Most recently, I created a version of this called Homoiconic C, which basically the idea is that it looks like C, which has, it's like C, but simpler and lower level. That was the vision of it. It's maybe 80% complete on the technology and 20% complete on the promise. But that's the crazy thing that I want to do. And it is, roughly equivalent to Nock, which is the crazy thing. And I built out a Nock assembler written in Homoiconic C in like 1 page. Now I haven't implemented it at all, but I've at least been able to sort of prove the formal equivalence. And so this is, I ran out of time. I'm running out of time now. I ran out of time on my vacation, and I probably won't get more to it until Christmas. But there's a really interesting possible future where I use, Homoiconic C to fix all the things wrong with Nock and all the things wrong with computation. And then we can at least start testing the hypothesis. Can you actually create a world where everyone owns their identity, everyone owns their data, and apps are basically just, things that people import into their system to run? We commoditize all the apps, and then we create, we have sort of, coordination ships. So you want to post something on a server, well, that server either has a way to talk to you or coordinate information. And I don't understand all that piece yet, but the idea is that they are at least a radically different and concrete way to solve many of the same problems Ernest thinks about. And so that's my 10 minutes today.
That sounds very interesting. Lower than C, but simpler. I don't know how you do that, but okay, that's interesting.
Well, yeah. I could do a whole session on that someday, but I won't do it now.
And one thing that bothers me of all these types of projects is that they always come up with little things to like kind of create community, but like just using the ships, the terminology and things. And to me, I want to appeal to regular people, and regular people might not like that. Right?
Is it better
like,
than? I mean,
I try to
is
like
a pod better than a ship?
Well, a pod is actually, dolphins. There's actually parts of dolphins and parts of orcas.
It's a more organic metaphor. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway,
but
yes, it's totally. These guys, they literally talk like about Martians, right? So they definitely have a very weird, occasionally cult-like vibe to them, and that is actually one of the reasons I'm actually probably wise to take it slowly. Like, there's a lot of very reasonable, thoughtful people there, and there is a little bit of a weird, cultish vibe you get, which they might be outgrowing and they might not. That is an interesting dynamic, to be sure.
And that's
the technology is all open source, and you can do whatever you want, even if the cult doesn't like it.
That's fine. What I like is that they are human-centered and data-centered and all that. Like, let's say they come up with something, let's say there's other people come with something similar that is right, but there are different types, instead of Martians, they're like, I don't know, Venutians or
that was actually the first document I wrote, is that Hoon is from Mars, Homoiconic C is from Venus, but that's another story.
Yeah, so these different groups, right, that they're very niche. What if, as time goes on, they discover like, hey, we have things that we can, why reinvent the wheel when both of us are, human-centered and whatever. So they can maybe, with as time goes on, they can try to share technology or build protocols so that they can still remain their own little niche, right? But at least they can integrate with others so that people don't have to choose, I have to be like this niche thing, I have to be like this Martian thing because I like some of the things that it does.
And the other thing, by the way, I didn't mention, is this idea of homoiconic is actually key to their thing where data and code are interchangeable. So everything they write is a data structure that is trivial to read and translate. So if I come up with a new opcode or a new language, it would be relatively straightforward to just read in all the existing code and write it back out again in a way that is insanely difficult with C and other languages. It's a fascinating. Anyway, let me just give Tom a chance, see if he has any questions or comments, or if he's too busy translating his location. Let's give him a minute or two. Ernest, any final comments before we turn the mic over to Tom?
What was I saying? Oh, I don't know, maybe not. Keeping your nicheness, working together, and always, keeping things at the community level, like not depending on one mind to do stuff, like not letting one person derail the work of the whole community. That's important. Like having principles and things that guide the community. And when there's discrepancies, well, you start talking and you discuss, and maybe you reach consensus, and maybe not. You can apply different levels of governance. You can, okay, let's be democratic. Let's do the voting thing. But when it comes to community, I don't. If you need a cohesive community, right? Then your decisions has to be not just majority plus one. It has to be like 80%, in my opinion. Like, it's worse than a
super majority is considered 2/3.
Well, I'm going with the
and consensus is considered like 90%.
Yeah,
those
but
are kind of the terms that people use.
Yeah, but when it comes to like a community, right? It has to be like almost 100% for a decision. They have to be together on that. And let's say they are okay. Yeah, 80% decide to go this way. So the 20% that feel, we were, this is not our decision. Then they can split off. And if that happens, then the whole, just a little piece of the community might split off. If it's strong enough, if whatever they were talking about is strong enough for that 20%, then they can go and do the for the community. And that's how you keep cohesiveness. Like the 80% of that went one way, they stay together, and the 20% they stay together. So both of those groups of individuals stay together in their own thing, right? And they go forth but yet they decide like whether to stay with the original or to fork. So each individual measures according to their principles, whatever, what side or what to do, and all the time. So everything is, community and individuals, they judge themselves and they measure. And okay, am I still is today? Do I today still reflect the community, and does the community still reflect me? So if that's the case, then just sit together. But when things change,
Sorry.
Ready, Tom?
This moment,
I let you have the floor.
yeah.
Switching, yeah. Oh, I'll just mention one point, but we're going to get a data point on that, Ernest, because apparently there's a fork or somebody sort of rage quitting the Urbit community, like just this morning or this week. And I'll be very curious to see how that happens. And one of the interesting questions is can you come up with a meta platform that even if you fork your community, you can find a way to still share ideas and resources and implementations across the void. So it'll be an interesting exercise. Okay. Anyway, we'll just leave it there and let Tom have the floor if he wants to react or start on his next topic. Tom, you're muted still. You're still muted. There we go.
Okay, I think we're okay. Home, not too bad. Life could be worse. I didn't get a comment on Ernie's presentation, but I couldn't relate to it, to be quite honest, Ernie. It's out of my territory, so I'll not comment on it.
That is totally fine. You can suspend judgment until we have something more concrete.
Oh, okay. So you wanted me to. Okay, now I did send you both an email, I believe, and I hope I remember correctly, with my latest books. And I'll just for fun, I'll give you guys a choice of which one I'll brief you on. So let's see, can I share screen? Sort of. There it is. Am I sharing a thing that says 2023 books?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So yeah, so these are the book projects I've been doing since July, and I'll run through them very quickly, and then I'll be happy to brief you on the ideas of any one of them if you choose. So the first one's very technical. It's about cyber resilience planning, how to plan better resilience against cyber attacks on your IT systems. And I believe I have gone more deeply than anybody has gone before. I'm comparing myself with MITRE, who's done a lot of work in the area. And this is preparation for a 2-day workshop to train people to plan better resilience for their corporation. That's number one. And you can have, of course, and look at any of these. Second one, my son, Kai, who's worked with me for 30 years, said, write a book for young people, age 28, maybe become a founder or they're starting something new, but give them some tips about how to, what they should learn and do that will keep them alive in an extremely chaotic and changing technical and political environment for the rest of their life. Because I've done that. I'm 82 and I figured out what works now that worked when I was 20. But okay, so that's, it's tips there. And the third one, some friends of mine are very, very enamored with the thing called the theory of constraints, primarily by Eli Goldratt, who's no longer with us, and as a way of managing projects and change. And I've never been very enamored by it, but several of my best friends said, we're very, very, very interested and think constraints is very important to master and learn. And we understand, we know you well enough to know you can contribute some additional theory to the idea. And so please write a book on it and we'll advise you. So that's that one. That contains a lot of fairly original ideas about how to deal with constraints. And then I just started 2 days ago, another friend of mine who is a consultant who advises top managers, founders, and owners, and has been using my techniques to do so, said, write me a book where you have a little selection of those ideas that I can just drop on the desk of the CEO and he can delegate it to his organization and it works. So that's the super staff one, number 4. Anything you'd like to have a nearer briefing on?
I mean, my vote would be for constraints. I actually remember reading a lot the book The Goal by Goldratt when I became a management consultant. I thought it was a fascinating framework. I'm curious, like you're right, that he has a very narrow version of constraints, kind of tied, I would argue, towards manufacturing businesses. I really have no clue how generalizable that is to general constraint solving businesses, or if that's precisely what you're tackling.
Right. Can you
Ernest,
see?
I can see your mouse.
The cyber resiliency thing is intrigues me.
Yeah, that's my
Um,
second choice. If you want to, because I think,
Okay. Well,
especially
I
if
can
it's
do
about
5
building
minutes on.
resilient organizations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can do 5 minutes on each.
okay.
sure.
And no problem, because you have, I assume you did get the email that I imagine I sent to you, and you do have access to the links to the books. Can somebody confirm? Yep, got
Yes,
that.
I have
Tom.
that, and I'll put it in the show notes.
Fine. Okay, so 5 minutes each, and I'll put my little timer on. I'll do the guides first because I've got it up here. Can you see the page? It says guides to the efficiency stream.
All we see is your email.
Right. Okay. So I've got to go back to Zoom, and I've got to okay, that's the email. Fine. And cancel. And don't save. Okay, I've got to share another screen. So I've got to share this one's my
There we go.
yeah, sorry about that. And
Not formatted greatly, unfortunately, but like I'm only seeing like
Yeah.
half the screen, like half a page or a quarter of a page.
right. Well, that will be rectified soon. Okay, and trying to, oh dear, I'm trying to get that window out of the way. I don't see you guys. Okay, so here's the front page of it. Now, I'm gonna skip here, okay, and just keep it. Oh, sorry, turn on my. The clock is ticking. I'm 1 minute into it. What I found was, when examining the ideas of constraints, were that there were some ideas that people classed as constraints, but they weren't really, in my opinion, constraints. So what's the difference? And I've long had a definition I worked out years ago that constraints are things where the intent, the primary intent, is to constrain. Now, practically everything you can imagine that we might mess about with has constraining effect. I mean, like simple choice of a programming language, you're constrained to that. But but that's not the primary purpose of a programming language, to constrain you. There's other purposes. So, long story short, I found that I wanted to get a clearer understanding of what is a constraint, and I simply said, if its primary purpose is to stop us, say don't go there, then I would call it a proper constraint, and put a symbolic minus sign in red here. But if all the other stuff that had constraining elements in it, I would call tools, and I'd make it green and put a plus on it. So a simple example, a kid goes down a slide on a playground. Now, it has some guides there so the kid doesn't fall out. They constrain him from falling out. But that's not the primary purpose of a slide. It's a secondary thing, a safety feature. If, on the other hand, in the same playground, there's a gate which has child safety opening so the kids can't accidentally escape into the wild, that is a constraint, okay? Because its primary intent is constraints. So that's the first thing I did was, I would say clarify the notion of a constraint. And there are all kinds of, now I'm going to skipping the else page. Second thing I did is I said, constraints can be described by their attributes. And so here's a list of attributes of a constraint. And to my knowledge, nobody's done this. I checked on nobody has said constraints have attributes. There's just constraints constrain you and they're sort of done. But I brainstormed some obvious attributes, quality attributes, if you like, of a constraint. And you'll recognize the language here. This is a value. This is therefore, these are all mainly qualities. They can be quantified. You can talk about them numerically. So this gives us a tool for analyzing a constraint and understanding it. That is, understanding these. So that's also another breakthrough idea. Half minute left. And you'll find elements of language and definition here. Let's maybe leave it at that for the moment. What I've tried to do is bring in fact, as you'll notice, I'm bringing in some language tools which Eli Goldratt didn't have access to and didn't know about, and trying to enhance the state of the art. My friends who are the fanatics and even got trained by Eli Goldratt personally said, I have indeed made the step of filling in a void that was in his work. And so we're on a path there. Okay, so that's the 5-minute thing about guides.
Thank you.
Then, yep. And then let's see. So then we have the cyber resilience. Okay. Can you see the cyber resilience book?
No, we're still just seeing the guides book.
Right. Okay. So I've got to go back and do something about that. Just a moment. Zoom and not that. You are screen sharing. Okay. Stop share. Then share screen and get the cyber resilience book. Now you
There
can
we
see
go.
it, I
Yes.
assume. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll put my 5-minute timer on and off we go. Okay, so what happened was in Europe, European Union, 2018, they passed some laws essentially about cyber resilience. And they said all important organizations the society depends on, like waterworks, electricity, defense, they must up their game so they don't go out of commission when the Russians attack them or the North Vietnamese or accidents or floods. So they made it a law that you have to, do cyber resilience. I don't know if there's any corresponding such law in the U.S. yet, but it obviously has to come. So now I've been working with the British Computer Society, BCS, for over 10 years. So I was on a committee that said, we are going to, help people plan cyber resilience. There isn't enough going on. And we had committees and talked for about 2 years. And I said, no organization's cyber resilience got better the last 2 years. Time for action. And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, we could train people and coach people to actually change their cyber resilience. And I said, I could make a course to do that. And they said, go ahead. We agree with you now. We're ready for action. So this is a book giving the detail of how to do a 2-day workshop to help people plan cyber resilience. And it uses Planguage and Valplan, which heavily. And I also did my research. And what I found was one guy called Ubiquitous or something like that at MITRE, who'd spent 10 years developing cyber resilience theory for MITRE, which is in U.S. Department of Defense. And so I used what was out there and I tried to improve upon it. Let's see what, given my timing, a lot of language in here, so here, for example, is cyber resilience and divided into quantified objectives for resilience. I quantified absolutely all of these in this book because a lot of people say, well, you can't quantify that stuff. It turns out the MITRE guy never quantified anything for about 10 years. And then he realized he had to quantify and started talking about it, but doing nothing about it. So I'm, of course, way ahead of him. Here's the resilience objective in, Planguage. So let's see, how are we on time? Oh, gosh, 3 minutes. I got 2 minutes to tell you some interesting things. So all of that, and then by the way, we are going to hold this course for 2 days in Stockholm, 20th of September. Be our first pilot course. If you want to come to Stockholm, I'll give you a free ticket. Be my guest. Nice excuse. But
a free ticket
now,
to the conference, not a free ticket to Stockholm.
You got it. You got it. The easy one. Okay. So, but then as I began to end my journey, so there's a lot of technical detail here, but it's, you know, proving you can do it. You can use Planguage to plan cyber resilience. Those are homework assignments, self-tests, and everything. But then, sort of bored towards the end, I said, everybody's talking about AI, ChatGPT, and some are poo-pooing it. Let's see what it can do. So I then asked my first question. I want to do cyber resilience planning. And it gave me a damn good answer that few human beings could do. And then I said, what should I do first to plan cyber resilience? And it gave me a damn good answer that few humans could do. And then I said, being me, give me an example of clear quantified cyber resilience objectives. And it did so. Then I said, give me the top 10 most critical cyber resilience objectives. And it did, and without me asking, it quantified them reasonably. Wow, this is what I'm dreaming teach people. I then said, give me a list of the top 10 cyber resilience stakeholders with a suggestion of their objectives. And it did so much better than most humans could do. And then I said, for each objective, suggest a strategy. We're going into design. Perfectly good answer there. Give me the sources of your suggestions. It's getting a little bit shy now, copyright and all that. And I said, suggest some good sources. It gave good ones, several of which I didn't know about. It made a very good definition of the difference between cybersecurity and cyber resilience. And then I said, can you do all this in Planguage? No problem. It obviously knew about Planguage and did it. And then I said, go into more depth in Planguage. It did it, right? And then I said, hey, see if you could use an impact estimation table in Planguage to do it. It did it perfectly well. End of.
It rendered it that way? Did you have to do a lot of reformatting?
No, nothing. It rendered it that way.
Wow.
When you're looking at it. Yeah, wow.
And are those sources
Wow.
legit, or are those just more hallucinations?
Now somebody, I haven't had a chance to check it, but the sources it gave, somebody pointed out that, surprise, some of them are made up. They're not real. They don't actually lead to anything. But we know that, but it still it faked it well, you know. No wonder I'd not heard of some of them. They were fake.
Wow, that is a fascinating exercise. And it does make me think that, like, you know, ChatGPT could make me get over one of the main barriers to entry we have with Planguage, which is that it's really tedious to write all that stuff down and format it. And having something that would at least give you a first cut would certainly be welcome.
Right. So I'll bet that if Ernest used this for his project, he would get some interesting answers.
I don't know. I'm allergic to ChatGPT.
Yeah, that's the problem.
I was too.
Well,
but I have to admit, I got impressed by this.
But this, what would kill it for me would be the hallucinations. Like, it should at least check itself. I know that there's some tools that it would give you the answer, or you will have an answer, then it would check itself. Okay, is this a right reference or citation? Like, and then
anyway, the rant is well known. We have 2 minutes left. So the question is, what do we want to do next month? Is there any homework? Because, like, it would be great if, you know, like, I will volunteer this, Ernest, is that if you're willing to talk to ChatGPT and get it to do a Planguage version of Datocracy, I will personally go through and check all the references and fix them. if you're willing to have the dialogue and see if you can get it, or is there a way? I mean, how long did it take you to do that ChatGPT work? Was that like 5 minutes or like 5 hours or 5 days?
Me?
Tom?
No, it's like the whole thing in an hour.
Would you be willing to do one for Datocracy? Have ChatGPT try and define Datocracy or some of the other stuff we've been talking about?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
That's my homework. And then, but Ernest can do it for his stuff.
But he will freak out the first time ChatGPT makes a minor glitch, and then it'll ruin it for him, I'm afraid.
Don't be so sensitive. Give the poor
no,
chat
I
a
am
chance.
serious. I'm not joking. I'm allergic to
He really does, like, this is his philosophical superpower, that he's really allergic to certain kinds of inappropriate behavior, and therefore he is motivated to do insane lengths to find alternatives. That is his superpower. All right, it is 11
Okay.
o'clock. I gotta go clean up the dog vomit, and
Oh.
literally. But it has been great, our multimodal, multi-part conversation, and I look forward to talking to you guys in September.
All right.
See
Thank
you.
you.